Welcome back to Against My Better Judgment, the podcast where two friends,
I'm Tamara Golden.
and I'm Danielle Whiteside, tell the truth, share the lessons, and laugh about the moments that we knew better but did it anyway. Each week we share real stories about our lives, about the times that life surprised us, stretched us, or just straight up humbled us, and the lessons that we learned along the way.
And this season is titled Just Because. Today we'll be talking about, well, me. Just because I don't have children doesn't mean I don't know child rearing. We're talking about that village.
Okay. But before we jump in, how have you been?
Pretty good. Celebrated a friend's birthday. So it was really kind of impromptu. Typically, this particular friend, we usually do something. She's not necessarily a big birthday person, but we tend to do a little something most years for her birthday. But this year, one of her friends it was very last minute. I'm not really great with last minute stuff, but I got a text like at 7:15 the morning of her birthday saying she wanted to do dinner.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. Spent the whole day with her and really just allowed her to do what she wanted to do for her full birthday. And I did, I made some unique, she likes bourbon. So I made like some 3 different types of old fashions, and we had like a whiskey kind of tasting, and we did karaoke. We just hung out. And so
that sounds like fun.
It was a easy weekend, and it was great to celebrate my dear friend. So
nice.
What about you?
Well, summer is officially in full swing, and so we had last week the boys were at soccer camp. This week Donovan is going to climbing camp, and then the week after,
is climbing camp all day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does he have gloves?
Oops. I don't think no, he doesn't. We don't own gloves for climbing, but hopefully where he's going will give him gloves. But
that's interesting. All day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect that they will be doing it all day. I think they'll have like times, and then they'll do other things.
Do the boys pick their camps, or do you just kind of?
He picked this one.
Okay.
He had a choice between this one and I believe it was a baseball camp, and he chose climbing. Actually, was pretty proud of him because he had 2 friends who went to his former school who were going to the baseball camp. But he had already told me that he wanted to go to the climbing camp. And I told him it wasn't until after he had made the decision to go to the climbing camp that he discovered that his 2 friends were going to be at baseball camp. And so I was like, well, hey, we can cancel and get your money back. So I was like, well, he was like, I don't know how to decide. And I was like, well, here's how I decide. I'll weigh pros and cons. The pros are you're going to, you wanted to climb, and, you get to do something different. The cons are that you're going to miss seeing your friends. And then the pros for your, going to baseball, vice versa. And so I was like, I'm going to give you 2 days to decide. And he came back and said, I want to go to climbing camp.
All right.
Yeah. Well, so I was like, he didn't let his friends influence him. He made his own choice. And I love that for him. So hopefully he has a good time. And it's just like we're all in the summertime. It just feels like we're all just out of sorts because we're just in different places. The routine is different. And, so.
No.
But we're having fun. So,
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So what does Ronan do? Does he
He's
go
still
to the
at
same
my mom.
rotation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Friday with Miss Yolanda. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
right.
Shannon's going back to his preschool for the summer.
Oh, so that works out for this year.
But then in fall, they're both going to be at the same school.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I'm going to be so happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally
everybody will. So, anyway.
All right. So just because I don't have children doesn't mean I don't know child rearing. Okay. And this is straight from the angle of the village. We always hear the old saying of, it takes a village to raise the child. But really, what is your village? Like, what does your village look like when it comes to your children? And I tend to think of those who have influence on children, such as teachers, coaches, child psychologists, pediatricians. Some of these folks don't have children, yet they are part of your village, like it or not. So, that's kind of how I think about this whole idea of not having children, but also yet knowing child rearing based on, observation, common sense, being a child. Because a lot of times you think about it, it's like, folks ask your opinion, but they don't really want it sometimes. So you have to think about, okay, is this a real ask? How to finesse this answer? How to think through it? Because what people in your village shouldn't do is judge you as a parent. That's not a good person to have in your village. The other thing I think about good people in your village is a person that's in your village should not judge children, like other children that you might be a part of those villages. Also, so that's kind of how this came to be. But sometimes I think about, like, when my friends are talking about their kids, I think through the process of, what does give people the right or the expertise or the skill set to be a parent? Well, when you think about it, from the time you have your first kid, that's your first time being a parent. So it doesn't make sense to me to think that having a kid automatically somehow gives you some sort of expertise on how to raise kids. Because when you think about it, well, if a person who's raised all boys, nobody would say, well, you've only raised boys, so what do you know about raising girls? Like,
so some people would say that.
Well, they would.
And there might be a little truth to it.
And it might be. And I do think that there is some truth to the idea of the lived experience of worry. I think it's something about the lived experience of safety for your kids and those thoughts. I think those things are lived experiences that are, I mean, you have to live them. If you don't live them, you just don't. But I do think that does in no way negates other things that are observed or just life experiences that can help with the idea of child rearing. And I'm one of these people that I'm very, very fortunate that almost all of my friends have children. I'll say that and put a pin in it. Or they have raised children to some degree. Either they've raised a relative, they've raised their brother's kids, they've raised someone that they were in a relationship with that came into the relationship with kids. So I've been very, very fortunate to be around kids my entire adult life, just because of those interactions with friends. So I think the idea of the village it's real. And I think as people raising kids, you have to recognize who do you want in your village and why that really matters. But the other thing I think about people with kids is that it's very difficult for them to remove themselves from their world. So from
the kids' world,
from the kids' world. So it's interesting because if I'm having an event and if I have a group of my friends that are only connected really by me, and it's inevitable that we're going to start a conversation about kids. It's just going to happen. And in those instances, I think that folks with kids sometimes don't recognize that that's not everybody's world. And it's just not. And it's not some of the choices about it's not being in some people's world is by choice. Not everybody wants kids. I mean, we've talked about, you have some friends that flat out don't want kids. And so I think people with kids are totally, in many cases, totally unaware of reading the room, and recognizing, like, I'm not talking about all the fun that I'm having, while you're watching a 2-year-old kick a soccer ball. So likewise, sometimes I don't really want to hear about your kids.
Well, dang.
But that being said, in all candor, is that the full circle is when I invest in them, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're thinking about just the village, I think I feel honored to be in villages. I feel honored that people trust me with their kids. And I feel honored to provide some diversity in that particular village, because the way in which parents interact with kids are different the way in which I interact with their kids. For example, this is a thing, and I didn't realize this is a thing, but for whatever reason, I cannot get the word "but" out of my vocabulary. So I probably say it 100. I'm like, sit your butt down. And then the kids are like, ooh, we don't say this word in our house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've said it again. And sure enough, it comes back out. And then finally I'm like, you know what, kid, you don't say but. I say but. I'm 46. I say it. And recognizing the difference between, what I can say as an adult and what you cannot say as a child. But what I've learned that works for me so far is if I'm going to make some sort of corrective action towards a kid, I do it in the presence of a parent. That way, there's no confusion. And it also allows the parent to correct me. And I think if you're going to be a part of someone's village, you have to know the recipe, what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, to make sure that you don't disrupt something that they're working really, really, really hard at.
Yeah.
So what I do like to do, if I'm going to do a corrective action, I do it in front of at least one of the parents so that they can say, yeah, or they can fix it or whatever. But that's kind of what I think about. And I even think about a trip. I just took a big trip with one of my dear friends. We did Disney, and I remember one incident to where I said, don't do something. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a counter. Like parents parent differently. I'm not a counter. I'm not a count to one. I'm also not a false, like, I'm not going to say you're not going to watch TV. If I say you're not going to watch TV, if you do it again, you're not going to watch TV. Mm-hmm. Like, my mindset is I try to keep things clear, and I don't dangle things that I'm not going to follow through with. So something happened, and I immediately said, don't do that again. It happened again. And so my tone totally changed. And I said, hey, I said, don't do that again. You did it again. Don't do it again. And so I let, the kids crying, fine. And the other things, I let kids cry because I think kids are incredibly manipulative. And a lot of times, if I would have said, do you want a sucker? That crying would have stopped immediately. Mm-hmm, so I just ignore kids when they cry, especially when it's because of discipline on something that they've done and they're clearly wrong. So the kid, and I interact with this family all the time. So the kid has a fit. Really, it's because he was tired. Yeah. And then I remember he was like, oh, I made Auntie Tammy upset. She's upset with me. He's hurt now because I'm upset with him. I'm like, give me a break. But so the mother's like, oh no, Auntie Tammy's not upset with you. She just wanted you to stop. And I was like, no, I am upset with you. And the reason I'm upset with you is, number one, I told you to stop and you didn't. Number two, what you're doing hurts me and you're not respecting the fact that it hurts me. So yes, I am upset with you, but I'm not going to be upset with you forever. Mm-hmm. And so I just think those types of ideas, are, those are just things that may or may not be different. But again, you have to balance who's in your village. Do they provide any value in your village? And if they don't, get them out of your village. If they do, keep them there. But I do think that those things are important.
So I'm going to say this, and I don't mean anything by it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sensitive to like what I know about you and your journey to having children, but I really wish I could see Tamara as a mom, because I feel like that tone is going to be different when there's your kids.
I hear that. I hear it all the time.
I mean, I think so. Who I am as a parent is not far off from who I am as a person, because I do feel like you have to parent authentically. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying you would be, a complete pushover like completely opposite of who you are. I think you would be consistent, but I think what you don't know is your child.
Yep.
That's the thing that's the key to it that, really helps you determine like what you can and can't, like how you navigate. So I try to be clear, but then like my clarity for Donovan is different than my clarity for Shannon and Ronan. And so, but I do appreciate someone like you that is in my village who can say things that I, sometimes goes goes in one ear of theirs and out the other. So it was funny because a few weeks ago, we all went to play golf at
Pop Stroke.
Pop Stroke. Yeah, you're right. Pop Stroke.
Girl.
And I remember
we should not have taken these kids to Pop Stroke.
I remember looking at her face like, Tamara's not having a good time.
It was such a bad decision. That was not the event. It just, when you said it, I was like, but I rolled with it because I was like, maybe, but it was exactly what I thought it would be. Like, it was not the event for that age. I think it just wasn't. I mean,
I think so. This is the funny thing. I expected exactly what happened. You expected exactly what happened.
Okay, because it was exactly what I expected once we got there.
But I think you might have been frustrated because, so, this is like putt-putt, like fancy putt-putt. And so they were hitting the balls and Tamara, because we were trying to take turns. And then I think finally Tamara was like, okay, you get 3 chances to hit these balls. And so then every hole after she made that rule, she'd be like, nah, I said you had 3. You did more. And so it was just watching you with them was so funny to me because I'm like, oh, they are working her nerves.
Yes, because I had to change the rule because it was going to take a day to get through just 4 holes, and I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how to modify this game.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, I had
fun.
A good time.
Yeah, I agree.
I hope you did too. But I also knew
I was glad when we went inside though.
Yeah, because it was hot and there were all sorts of other games to play, and they had a playground there. It was really cool, but it was also our first time going there. We didn't really know how things went.
That golf ball. So I must have left with the golf ball because I was doing something in my car. If that golf ball didn't roll from under my seat.
Well,
yeah, that part.
Sorry,
we own that.
But anyway, it was just funny to watch you like interact with the kids, and I do love that you're very direct. Like, hey, this is the direction, and we're going to do this. But like I said, I would just love to see how that comes out with your own children. And then I had a note about talking about. So I think kids are the unifying thing that most people have in common. And so I think that's why it is that you're somewhere and someone's always going to be talking about their kids, because most people have children. Whether they should is arguable. But I do think it is important to not dominate the conversation. Like I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, let me show you a picture of my little Jimmy here. I'm not that person. If you ask about my children, I will share what they're doing. And most of the time because again, most people have kids, so they're looking for a point of connection. And so they will ask like, how are your children? And I'll give them, a little sentence here or there. If they're kind of tangential, like I'll tell you more, but like people who are just kind of asking like, oh, they're fine. They're doing great. They're having fun this summer. That's probably going to be it. But I hope I'm not dominating the conversation.
No. And that's, and I'll say even most of the time, that was more of just a talking point, not that it happens routinely or regularly or anything like that.
Yeah, but it is, in the defense of parents, the children really are your world. Like, everything revolves around them, for better or for worse.
Right.
I'm not going to say I wish it weren't that way, but it is a fact that you have to accept when you do have kids. And so like, even when me and my husband will go out on a date, like we spend a lot of the time talking about the kids and what they're doing. And did you hear what Donovan said to me the other day? And I'm like, chill. It's fine. So, it's just because they are so much like you put I put 80% of the effort that I have, if I were to put it in a pie, into my children. And so like naturally that's the biggest thing in my mind all the time. And so it's really difficult. And so it's sometimes like if we are in a conversation, like I try to share the space of the conversation. That's just me in general. But also like help us steer, you know, into something else. Like, oh, what, like you talked a lot about these kids. I haven't heard anything about you. I want to hear about you, you know? And so sometimes people who are immersed in that world just need to be reminded, like, you are a person. And I would appreciate that prompting, because it makes me feel like, you're right, I do need to remember that I, you know, how are you doing? Not the kids, you know? So it's, I don't know, I just made that note. But I do want to say that I appreciate you being part of My Kids Village and that you are invested. We've talked about this many times. And I think that for people who you can trust to be around your children, that you just can't, like, that's so invaluable, you know, to have other people other wholesome people imprinting on your children is so important. And I'm grateful that, you know, we have that.
Thanks. And it's fun. Like it's fun. Like it really is, like stuff that I want to do or I get to do it. Like, because soon, you know, these kids are going to be riding rollerblades. Like, it's like, so it really does help you be a kid again. So I love it.
Cool. All right, we're going to move on to Against My Better Judgment, we're going to move on to We'll Be the Judge. Where we give our qualified yet unqualified opinion. And so this person said her name was Miss Sanders.
Miss Sanders?
Yeah. She says, for years, I was working toward a specific goal. Now I've achieved it. And instead of feeling fulfilled, I mostly feel confused. I spent so much time chasing the dream that I never thought about what came next. How do you figure out what's next when you've already accomplished what you set out to do? Miss Sanders.
Wow. I think this question is quite unique, and I don't even know if I'm qualified to answer it. Because I'm always, I don't know if the right word is chasing, but that's the word I'm going to use right now. I'm always chasing the next thing. I have a huge, maybe a character defect of lacking, like, if I'm not working towards something, I don't feel fulfilled. So because I'm always thirsty for whatever's next. Not to say that I'm not enjoying and appreciating and having gratitude for the moment, but someone asked, I was meeting with my financial person, and he asked, like, when do you plan to retire? And I'm like, never, because that definition doesn't fit my like who I am in life. Like, I will always be doing something. So I think you probably, Miss Sanders, should sit down and just think on, what do you really, really like? What is it like? Think as big as you can possibly think, and then strategize or plan how to do it. But at this point in life, you know, think about things. I use this a lot on this podcast because, and I think I am fortunate, but those get to jobs, those get to things that you get to do every single day and you really love them. That's kind of how, when I left corporate America, that's what I told myself. Everything I do, I'm going to get to do it and be that excited about it. So again, I don't feel real qualified to speak to this. So
I have experienced something like this, in that there's always something there's always a pinnacle in our mind, or something that we feel is a stretch goal, and we work, or at least that's how I have been. And we work and put all of our effort and all of our energy into it, and the pursuit of it becomes so important, and the pursuit of it is toward this idea of what we think that it is when you get there. And the reality is that we don't know that it will be as it is when we achieve it. And so I remember when I took the job at the state as general counsel, and I was young, and I thought, you know, when you first go to law school, being general counsel feels like what you do after 30 years of a legal career. And so I, started out and I was like, okay, I'm hustling. I'm going to, get somewhere. And I ended up with it very quickly, relatively quickly in my legal journey. And so when I got it, I enjoyed the work, but also it was the reality of the work. Like I said, you are in your mind, you have this idealized picture of whatever you're chasing. And then when you get it, it's like, oh, this is what it is.
Yep.
And so it's not bad. It's just the reality. It's like, having kids, like you have this real, when you dream about being a mother, it's looking down and, stroking their cheek, and you don't know half of what it actually takes. And so I think you're in this season where you need to just get acquainted with the reality and sit in that space of like, okay, now I have it. What was I trying to pursue about what about this was I trying to pursue when I was pursuing it, and find that in the work that you're doing right now. And then also get acquainted with everything else around it, because you had no idea what it required and what the reality of it was going to be like when you were dreaming about it. Right. So get acquainted with the real of it, and then you'll know at some point when it's time to move on. It seems to me that you might have gotten it. I'm making some assumptions here, but you've been in this a year or two, and you're like, wow, this is not all this cracked up to be. And, spend time, like I said, getting acquainted with what's reality. And then at some point you will know when it's time to go and what you want to shoot for next. And so how do you figure out what's next when you've already accomplished what you set out to do? Sit in what you're doing until you figure out what's next.
I like it. Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Let us know, Ms. Sanders, how it's going, though.
Yeah. And now it's time. Now it is time for Against My Better Judgment.
Oh, yes. And it's going to be quick.
All right.
Oh, I think this is kind of related. I didn't know it was going to be related, but so I am going on a trip for school, and I wanted a backpack. My criteria was I wanted a backpack that is professional, but also that travels well and all those sorts of things. So went online, was doing a lot of research, and I bought a backpack that I thought fit. It was cute. It was professional. And I bought it because of that. But against my better judgment, when I got it, it was too small. Oh. And I had to send it back. So, and I think it goes back to the reality of the thing. It's like, you had this dream in mind. I saw myself being very sleek and, put together with this backpack.
With that coin purse.
Yeah. Girl, stop. But in the reality, when I put it on and I put everything in my backpack, I showed it to Andre, and he was like, it kind of looks stuffed. Like, you don't have any room in there. And I was like, you're right. And so I sent it back. So against my better judgment, I bought a backpack for the look and not the function. And, and it was expensive too. So I was definitely, because one of my classmates was like, well, you should keep it. It looks really, really good. And I'm like, it costs too much to not do the job I was purchasing it for. So I did end up doing more research and I think I have a bag that is going to fit. But this might seem simple, but there are just times when you have to realize, like, there's this external thing that you want, but then also you need to really get what you need. So,
yep. No, I totally agree. So, what were your takeaways from today?
I am appreciative of my village, and I love the perspective that you bring as part of that. And I think really talking to Ms. Sanders about the reality and understanding that we have dreams, but then there's when the dream happens, you have to contend with the reality of that dream. And it doesn't make the dream any less worth reaching.
Agreed.
Yeah. But, and now you know.
Yeah, and I think just thinking about the village and the community that comes from just observing and caring, and also recognizing that if you're a part of a village, no parent wants criticism as far as parenting. And so if you are a villager, you need to know your role as part of the village. A person that's part of your village does not judge the parents, but person that's part of the village supports the family.
Yeah. And there are ways that you can. I don't want anyone to criticize my parenting because you don't feed these kids.
Correct.
And you're not responsible for them. But I do appreciate a gentle, like, hey, why'd you, like, you said something that was weird. I was wondering why or something. Like, I appreciate
help me understand
that. Yeah, we're good with that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want us to give our opinion on your life and what you have going on and the goals you're trying to reach, send us an email at againstmybetterjudgmentpod@gmail.com or on Facebook and Instagram at Against My Better Judgment Pod.
Also, thank you all for joining each week. If invite a friend, like, click, and subscribe. And if there are stars, we only know 5. So see y'all next week.
All right.
Bye y'all.